The last lights of Earth's shipyards flickered in the distance as Captain Sarah Chen watched from the Helios observation deck. The experimental vessel represented humanity's final gambit, a desperate bid for survival against an enemy that had pushed them to the brink of extinction. The Nexus Collective had appeared 3 years ago, their biomechanical ships darkening the skies of humanity's outer colonies before anyone could raise an alarm. Now, less than 30% of human space remained free. The Collective's technological superiority had made conventional resistance futile. Traditional weapons barely scratched their regenerating hulls, and their quantum communication network made coordinated defense impossible. But the Helios was different. Final systems check complete, Captain. Commander James Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with tension. Though I still can't believe they're letting us launch. Sarah turned from the viewport, a grim smile playing across her features. They're not. This is an unauthorized deployment. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They'd all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be their last, but stealing humanity's most advanced warship hadn't been part of the briefing. The Defense Council voted to surrender. Sarah continued, her voice hard. They're meeting with collective representatives tomorrow to discuss terms. But we all know what collective occupation looks like. We've seen the feeds from the colonies they've taken. Those aren't peace negotiations. They're submission protocols. The Helios's bridge hummed with energy as its quantum core spooled up. The ship itself was a marvel of desperate innovation. Its hull incorporated crystalline matrices that could phase shift under fire, making it nearly impossible to target. The main weapon system, dubbed the entropy cannon, could theoretically unravel the molecular bonds holding collective ships together, but it had never been tested in actual combat. Security teams are converging on the dock. Lieutenant Kira Patel reported from Tactical. They'd figured out what we're doing. Time to go then. Sarah took her command chair. Mr. Rodriguez, plot a course for the Arcadia colony. If the collective wants to break humanity's spirit, we'll show them exactly what that spirit is capable of. The Helios's engines ignited, their revolutionary design allowing the ship to accelerate to full speed without the crushing G-forces that plagued conventional drives. As they broke free from Earth's orbital defense grid, 3 patrol cruisers moved to intercept. They're ordering us to power down. Communications Officer Chen Wei announced. Admiral Yaris himself is on the line. Sarah leaned forward. Put him through to my station only. A holographic window materialized, showing the weathered face of her former mentor. Admiral. Sarah, don't do this, Yaris pleaded. The Council's decision is final. This is our only chance to save what's left of humanity. No, sir, Sarah replied quietly. This is our only chance to fight back. The Helios works. It can hurt them. And if we don't take this shot now, there won't be anything left worth saving. You'll be branded traitors. Better a traitor to a surrender than a traitor to humanity's future. Sarah cut the transmission. Mr. Rodriguez, prepare for quantum jump. The pursuing cruisers opened fire, but their warning shots went wide. They were hesitating, unwilling to risk damaging the prototype vessel. It was all the time the Helios needed. Reality twisted as the quantum drive engaged. Unlike conventional FTL systems that tunneled through space, the Helios literally rewrote the laws of physics around itself, allowing for instantaneous translation between points in spacetime. The theory had seemed impossible until Dr. Helena Santos proved otherwise, shortly before she disappeared into a collective integration center. As Earth vanished behind them, Sarah addressed her crew. I know this isn't what any of you signed up for, but everything we love, everything we are, is about to be erased. The collective doesn't want peace. They want compliance. They don't conquer worlds. They absorb them. We're not just fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for humanity's right to remain human. The crew's response was immediate and unanimous. They hadn't joined this mission for glory or duty. They'd joined because someone needed to take a stand. Contact in the Arcadia system in 6 hours, Rodriguez reported. Collective presence is heavy. 3 carrier groups and a processing hub. Sarah nodded. Perfect. Let's show them what happens when you back humanity into a corner. We may have started as a prototype, but we're about to become their worst nightmare. The Helios streaked through quantum space, carrying with it humanity's last, best hope for survival. And in the darkness between stars, its crew prepared for a battle that would either mark the beginning of humanity's resistance or the final chapter of its existence as a free species. Arcadia Colony hung in space like a jewel wrapped in thorns. Once a thriving hub of human innovation, its orbital platforms now bristled with collective biosynthetic weaponry. The Helios watched from the system's outer rim, cloaked in a quantum field that bent light and sensor readings around its hull. 17,000 civilians still alive on the surface, Kira reported, her voice tight. The collective's keeping them in processing centers. There, they're being prepared for integration. Sarah studied the tactical display, watching the patterns of collective ships as they maintained their patrol routes. The alien vessels resembled massive dark fractals, constantly shifting and realigning their outer layers. Their very appearance defied human engineering principles, which was exactly why conventional weapons proved so useless against them. Dr. Santos theorized that their ships aren't just vessels. Rodriguez explained, pulling up analysis from the Helios's quantum sensors. They're growing, evolving. Each engagement makes them stronger. Then we'll have to hit them hard enough that they don't get a chance to adapt, Sarah replied. Wei, are you picking up any transmissions from the surface? The communications officer nodded, his fingers dancing across his console. Scattered resistance broadcasts. Encrypted, but I'm breaking through. They're organizing something big, but they need a distraction. Sarah smiled. Let's give them more than a distraction. Load the entropy cannon. Target their processing hub. The Helios's main weapon hummed to life, drawing power directly from its quantum core. The technology was based on Dr. Santos' final breakthrough, a way to manipulate the fundamental forces holding matter together. The collective's adaptive capabilities meant nothing if their ships could be unraveled at the atomic level. Multiple signatures approaching the colony, Kira warned. They're starting another integration cycle. Not today. Sarah leaned forward. Battle stations. Rodriguez, plot us a course straight through their defense line. Kira, target solutions for all secondary weapons. Wei, broadcast on all frequencies. Let the resistance know hope is coming. The Helios dropped its cloak and accelerated, its crystalline hull catching the light of Arcadia's sun. The collective response was immediate. 3 carrier ships turned, their fractal patterns shifting to combat configuration. Energy beams lanced out, but the Helios's phase-shift hull scattered them harmlessly into space. They're adapting already, Rodriguez reported, detecting changes in their weapon frequencies. Then let's not give them time to solve the puzzle. Fire entropy cannon. The weapon discharge, a beam of pure chaos that violated the laws of physics themselves. It struck the nearest carrier, and for a moment nothing seemed to happen. Then reality shuddered. The carrier's fractal patterns began to dissolve, its molecular bonds cascading into disorder. Within seconds, the massive ship had become a cloud of disassociated particles. The remaining collective vessels recoiled, their formations breaking as they encountered something they couldn't adapt to. On the surface, resistance channels erupted with cheers. Multiple human signals from the processing centers. Wei announced. The resistance is moving. They're fighting back. The Helios dove through the gap in the collective line, its secondary weapons blazing. Conventional armaments have been modified with entropy field generators, smaller yields, but enough to cripple the biomechanical fighters swarming around them. The processing hub is launching evacuation pods, Kira reported. They're trying to save their integration protocols. Target those pods, Sarah ordered. We're not letting them take a single human today. The Helios's point defense grid activated, entropy pulses swatting the pods from space like flies. Each destruction represented dozens of humans saved from a fate worse than death. Then the tide turned. The remaining carriers synchronized, their fractal patterns merging into something new. A massive energy signature built up between them. Evasive action. Sarah shouted, but Rodriguez was already moving. The Helios barrel rolled through space as a beam of concentrated dark energy passed through where they had been, warping spacetime itself. "They're learning," Rodriguez said grimly. "That attack would have bypassed our phase shift entirely." Sarah nodded. "Then we adapt too. Redirect power from secondary weapons to the quantum core. Prepare for targeted spacetime inversion." The crew worked with practiced efficiency, even though they'd never attempted this maneuver outside simulations. The Helios's quantum drive spooled up, but instead of jumping away, it created a localized distortion in reality. When the collective fired again, their dark energy beam hit the distortion and reflected back on itself. The synchronized carriers couldn't react in time. Their own weapon tore through their combined defenses, shattering their perfect formation. "Entropy cannon recharge," Kira reported. "And this." The weapon fired twice more, and the remaining carriers dissolved into clouds of elementary particles. As their control over the system broke, shears erupted from the surface of Arcadia. The processing centers were being overrun by resistance fighters, and the smaller collective units were retreating in disarray. "Captain," Wei called out, "I'm getting signals from other colonies. They're seeing this. The Arcadia resistance is broadcasting everything." Sarah stood, watching as shuttles began launching from the surface. Evacuees and freed prisoners heading for the safety of the Helios. "Send a message back to Earth. Tell them humanity doesn't surrender. Tell them hope is no longer a prototype." The Helios had proven itself in battle, but this was just the beginning. The collective would adapt, grow stronger. But now, humanity had a weapon that could match their evolution, and the will to use it. The real war was about to begin. The holographic display in the Helios lab painted Dr. Maya Chen's face in an eerie blue glow as she studied the salvaged collective data core. After the liberation of Arcadia, they'd recovered dozens of integration protocols and processing matrices, but this was different. This core came from the central hub itself. "Captain, you need to see this." Maya's voice trembled slightly as she called Sarah to the lab. Her hands moved through the holographic data streams, pulling apart layers of alien code. "It's not just about control. The integration process. It's about harvest." Sarah entered the lab, followed by Rodriguez and Wei. The victory at Arcadia had given humanity its first real hope, but the cost had been high. 3 crew members lost, and the entropy cannon's power matrix was showing signs of strain. They needed answers, and this data core might hold them. "What kind of harvest?" Sarah asked, studying the complex patterns floating in the air. Maya highlighted a section of code, and it expanded to show neural mapping sequences. "The collective doesn't just want our bodies or our worlds. They're harvesting our minds, our creativity, our capacity for innovation." The revelation hit like a physical blow. Wei stepped forward, his eyes scanning the data. "That's impossible. The collective's technology is far beyond ours. Why would they need human minds?" "Because they can't innovate on their own," Rodriguez said quietly, the pieces falling into place. "Their adaptive capabilities, their evolutionary technology, it's all reactive. They can't create new solutions, only build on existing ones." Maya nodded grimly. "Exactly. The collective is a vast neural network, but it's fundamentally derivative. It needs new patterns, new ways of thinking. And humanity." She paused, swallowing hard. "We're the most creative species they've ever encountered." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "The integration centers. They're not just processing humans for control. They're digitizing our consciousness." Maya finished. "Every human they integrate becomes part of their network. Their minds are used to solve problems, generate new ideas, create innovations that the collective could never develop on their own." The lab fell silent as the implications sank in. Millions of humans, their minds trapped in an alien network, forced to create and innovate for their captors. It explained why the collective had been so interested in human colonies, why they'd focused on capturing rather than destroying. Dr. Santos, why breathed? She wasn't just taken. They wanted her mind, her creativity. Sarah turned to Maya. Can you trace the network? Find where they're storing these consciousness patterns? Better than that. Maya pulled up another data stream. I think I know why they're so afraid of the Helios. The entropy cannon doesn't just destroy their ships, it disrupts their neural network. Each time we fire, we're not just damaging their physical form, we're corrupting their stored data. Rodriguez leaned forward. Could we use that? Find a way to target their consciousness storage specifically. Maybe. Maya's fingers flew through the holographic interface, but we'd need access to their central processing hub. Not just a colonial center, but their primary consciousness repository. Sarah studied the scrolling data, her mind racing. The collective's been moving in a specific pattern, harvesting colony after colony. They're not just expanding randomly. They're gathering minds for something big. There's more. Maya highlighted a section of corrupt data, partially reconstructing it. I'm seeing references to a great integration, some kind of massive computational event they're planning. They need human minds for it, lots of them. How long? Sarah demanded. Based on these calculations, 2 weeks. Maybe less. Once it happens, Maya's voice trailed off. The enslaved minds would be permanently bound to their network. Rodriguez finished. No chance of recovery. Sarah straightened, her decision made. Way, get me a secure channel to Admiral Yaris. With this evidence, he'll have to act. The Defense Council needs to know what's really at stake. And if they still choose surrender, Rodriguez asked quietly, then we do this alone. Sarah's voice was steel. Maya, I want options for weaponizing the entropy cannon's neural disruption effect. If we can't save everyone before this great integration, we need a way to break their network completely. That would mean, Maya hesitated, the trapped minds might be lost. Better lost than enslaved forever. Sarah looked at each of them in turn. We're not just fighting for humanity's survival anymore. We're fighting for its soul. The Helios's quantum core hummed in the background, a reminder of humanity's capacity for innovation. The very thing the collective sought to harvest. They had 2 weeks to prevent the largest theft of consciousness in human history. Send word to the resistance cells, Sarah ordered. All of them. Tell them what we've learned, what's coming. The collective thinks they can use our creativity against us. Her eyes hardened. Let's show them just how creative humans can be when we're fighting for our minds and our freedom. The revelation changed everything. The war wasn't just about territory or survival. It was about the very essence of human consciousness. And somewhere out there, trapped in the collective's neural network, Dr. Santos and millions of others were waiting to be freed. The clock was ticking, and the greatest battle was yet to come. The Helios emerged from quantum space above Europa Colony, its crystalline hull reflecting the ice moon's pale glow. In the week since discovering the truth about the collective's neural harvesting, they'd struck 3 more processing centers. Each victory spread like wildfire through hidden resistance channels, igniting hope in places where it had long died. Status of the evacuation? Sarah asked, watching the streams of civilian ships rising from Europa's surface. 80% complete, Way reported. The resistance cells are coordinating perfectly. They'd been planning this for months, just waiting for a chance. The tactical display showed 5 collective carriers approaching from Jupiter's shadow. They moved differently now, more cautiously. The Helios was no longer an unknown factor. It was a proven threat. They're updating their combat protocols, Rodriguez observed. New fractal patterns. They're trying to develop a defense against the entropy cannon. Sarah nodded. They would. But they're still thinking like a hive, trying to evolve their way out of the problem. That's not how humans work. The past week had proven her right. While the collective adapted their ships and weapons, humanity had adapted its tactics. The Helios wasn't fighting alone anymore. Every liberated colony brought new resources, new ideas, new ways to fight back. Message from Admiral Yaris. Wei announced. The Defense Council has reviewed Dr. Chen's findings. They're officially rescinding the surrender order. Earth's fleet is mobilizing. A cheer went through the bridge. The evidence of the collective's true intentions had done what military defeats couldn't. United humanity's leadership behind a single purpose. Multiple quantum signatures, Kira called out. Ships emerging. It's the Artemis Resistance Fleet. Sarah smiled as 12 warships appeared around the Helios. They were older vessels, retrofitted with salvaged collective technology and modified based on the Helios' success. Leading them was the Marathon, commanded by Captain Aisha Hassan, one of the first to believe in the Helios' mission. Collective vessels are adjusting course, Rodriguez reported. They're deploying fighter screens. Captain Hassan is hailing, Wei said. Put her through. Aisha's hologram appeared on the bridge, her dark eyes bright with determination. Looked like you could use some company, Sarah. The Ganymede cells sent us their entropy field modifications. We're ready to test them. 5 carriers against 13 ships. Sarah grinned. Almost seems unfair. To them, maybe. Aisha's expression hardened. We found another processing center on Io. They were about to begin a mass integration. 200,000 people. Sarah's smile faded. Not anymore, they're not. All ships, battle formation Delta. The Helios will punch through their center line. Artemis fleet, hit their flanks when they adapt. Show them what happens when humanity works together. The battle that followed would be remembered as the turning point. The collective ships moved with perfect coordination, their fractal patterns shifting to counter every attack. But they couldn't counter 13 different strategies at once, couldn't adapt to weapons that changed with every shot. The Helios' entropy cannon tore through their center, while modified torpedoes from the resistance fleet disrupted their neural networks. Fighters darted between capital ships, their pilots improvising maneuvers that no algorithm could predict. Their formation is breaking, Kira reported. The neural disruption is working. They're losing cohesion. Sarah watched as the mighty collective carriers began to fall. This wasn't just a tactical victory. It was proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its weapons. It was its diversity, its unpredictability, its ability to work together without sacrificing individuality. Captain, Maya called from her station. I'm detecting massive data transfers from the Io facility. They're trying to save their harvested consciousness patterns. Track those transmissions, Sarah ordered. We need to know where they're sending them. The battle ended with all 5 carriers destroyed, but the data transfer had gone through. The collective was protecting something bigger than a few ships or even a processing center. Later, in the Helios briefing room, Sarah met with Captain Hassan and the resistance leaders. The holographic display showed a map of known collective space, with the recent data transmission traced to a single point. That's it, Maya explained, highlighting a sector deep in collective territory. Their primary consciousness repository. Every mind they've ever harvested is stored there, including Dr. Santos. It's heavily defended, Aisha noted. At least 30 carrier groups, plus whatever other defenses they've developed. And we have 6 days before the great integration begins, Rodriguez added. Not much time to gather our forces. Sarah studied the map, remembering the faces of those they'd rescued, thinking of the millions still trapped in the collective's neural prison. We've proven we can hurt them. Now it's time to prove we can beat them. She looked around the room, seeing the same determination in every face. Send word to Earth, to every resistance cell, every free colony. The collective thinks they can use our minds against us. Fine. Let's show them the full creative potential of humanity unleashed. What are you proposing? Aisha asked. Sarah's eyes never left the map. We're going to take every ship we have, every weapon we've developed, every tactic we've learned, and we're going to hit them where they live. One massive strike, not just to destroy their repository, but to free every mind they've stolen. The room fell silent as the magnitude of her plan sank in. It was audacious, perhaps impossible. But then, they've been doing the impossible ever since the Helios first broke free from Earth's orbit. The collective thinks they understand humanity because they've harvested our minds, Sarah continued. But they don't understand the one thing that makes us truly dangerous: our ability to come together and achieve the impossible, not because we're forced to, but because we choose to. As the resistance leaders began coordinating their forces, Sarah knew the real battle was about to begin. The Helios had started as a prototype, become a symbol, and now it would lead humanity's greatest fight, not just for survival, but for the very essence of what it meant to be human. The combined fleet of humanity dropped out of quantum space like an avenging army. Over 300 ships, from Earth's newest destroyers to salvaged colony vessels retrofitted with entropy weapons. At their head flew the Helios, its crystalline hull pulsing with power as it prepared to face the heart of the collective. The consciousness repository loomed before them, a massive structure that defied conventional physics, its fractal architecture extending into dimensions human eyes couldn't properly process. Around it hovered the largest gathering of collective ships ever recorded. 53 carrier groups detected, Kira reported, her voice steady despite the odds. They're moving to intercept. Sarah stood on the Helios's bridge, watching as the final pieces fell into place. They had one shot at this, one chance to end the war before the great integration began. Everything they'd learned, every sacrifice they'd made, had led to this moment. "Dr. Chen," she called, "status of the quantum override." Maya's voice came through from the engineering lab. "The modifications are holding. If we can get close enough, we should be able to initiate a cascading entropy field through their entire neural network." "Should?" Rodriguez asked. "It's not like we could test it," Maya replied. "But the theory is sound. Dr. Santos' original quantum equations proved it was possible. Fitting that her work might be what saves her." The collective fleet moved with perfect synchronization, their ships forming intricate patterns that rippled through space itself. But something was different about their formation. "Captain," Wei called out, "I'm detecting unusual signal patterns." The collective, they're broadcasting on human frequencies. A voice filled the bridge, not the usual mechanical tones of collective communication, but a human voice, distorted and layered with countless others. "We are evolution. We are perfection. Your resistance is an error to be corrected. Join us in the great integration, and your minds will know true unity." Sarah's hands clenched. That's what they don't understand. Unity through force isn't unity at all. She opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "This is Captain Chen. The collective thinks they know humanity because they've stolen our minds, but they've missed the most important thing about us. We're not great because we're all the same. We're great because we're all different, and we choose to work together anyway." The collective ships began their advance, energy weapons charging. "Combat formations," Sarah ordered, "just like we planned. Show them what real unity looks like." The battle erupted across space like a new constellation being born. The human fleet split into smaller groups, each operating independently, but coordinating their attacks. Where the collective moved with mechanical precision, humanity moved with controlled chaos. Frigates darting between capital ships, fighters executing maneuvers that seemed suicidal until they worked. The Helios led the charge, its entropy cannon tearing holes in the collective's perfect formations. But the enemy was ready this time. Their ship's fractal patterns shifted in new ways, absorbing or deflecting the entropy fields. "They've adapted to our weapons," Rodriguez reported. Sarah smiled grimly. "Good thing we adapted first. Maya, initiate Protocol Prometheus." Deep within the Helios's quantum core, Maya activated the program they'd developed, a virus designed not to destroy the collective's neural network, but to wake up the minds trapped within it. The effect was immediate. Collective ships began breaking formation, their perfect synchronization faltering as the harvested human consciousness patterns within began to resist. Multiple system failures detected in the enemy fleet, Kira called out. Their neural network is destabilizing. But the collective fought back. The repository structure pulsed with energy, trying to reassert control over its stolen minds. The space around the structure began to warp as it initiated emergency protocols for the Great Integration. They're trying to complete the integration early, Maya warned. If they succeed, they won't. Sarah cut her off. All ships converge on the repository. Everything we have. Right now, the human fleet struck as one. Entropy weapons combining with conventional armaments in an overwhelming barrage. The Helios's quantum core screamed as it channeled more power than it was ever designed to handle. Space itself seemed to cry out as the repository's defenses began to fail. Inside its neural network, millions of imprisoned minds fought for their freedom. Their combined will amplified by Maya's virus. Quantum signature detected. Wei shouted over the chaos. It's coming from inside the repository. A new voice cut through the command channel. Familiar, impossible, and absolutely human. The containment fields are failing. Captain Chen, if you can hear this, push through. Their control is breaking. Sarah's heart stopped. Dr. Santos. End this, Santos' voice commanded. End it now. Maya. Sarah called. Full power to the entropy cannon. Everyone else, clear the firing lane. We're finishing this. The Helios's weapon charged one final time, drawing power not just from its own systems, but from the quantum wake of the entire human fleet. The entropy cannon fired, its beam striking the repository's core. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself began to unravel. The repository's fractal structure collapsed in on itself, its perfect patterns dissolving into chaos. But this wasn't destruction, it was liberation. Streams of data burst from the failing structure, carrying with them the encoded patterns of millions of human minds. The resistance fleet was ready, special ships equipped with quantum storage arrays moving in to receive the transfers. The remaining collective ships went dark, their neural network shattered, their stolen consciousness patterns freed. Without the harvested human minds to drive their evolution, they were just empty shells. Hours later, Sarah stood in the Helios's medical bay, watching as Dr. Santos, her consciousness successfully transferred back into a cloned body, took her first real breath in 3 years. It's over, Santos whispered, her voice hoarse but her eyes clear. Really over. Sarah nodded. The collective's gone. Without human minds to drive their adaptation, their entire empire is collapsing. We're already getting reports of their ships shutting down across occupied space. They never understood, Santos said. They thought creativity could be harvested, that consciousness could be forced into unity. They didn't realize that human innovation comes from our differences, from our ability to see things in new ways. The Helios hummed quietly around them, its quantum core settling into a steady rhythm. The prototype ship had become something more, a symbol of humanity's resilience, creativity, and determination to remain free. What now? Santos asked. Sarah looked out at the stars, stars that were now free of collective control. Now we rebuild, and we make sure we never forget what we learned here. Unity is strongest when it's chosen, not forced. And humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to face the impossible together, each in our own way. The war was over, but humanity's journey was just beginning. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not just surviving, but proving that their chaotic, creative, undeniably human nature was more powerful than any forced evolution. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would they.